On for a second. There we go. I was on mute there for a moment. 614 Startups Nation, welcome to another episode of 614 Startups After Hours. My name is Elio Harmon, and my mission is to help entrepreneurs scale to their first $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Tonight, we are going to be talking about imposter syndrome, how it manifests itself in the entrepreneur's life, and how to overcome it. Before we dig into the content, though, big shout out to all our followers and everybody who's joining us on this live stream, including a very special follower, Tizzy2Real, who commented on our first After Hours video saying, "This video was dragging." Thank you for keeping it too real. In that spirit, let's get to work. And of course, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. If you leave your feedback, I would love to read it on the next episode. So in the spirit of Tizzy2Real, I'm ready to get right down to business. Now, here's a question for you. And please interact with me there in the comments as we go along here. But have you ever felt like a fraud despite your accomplishments? If so, you're not alone. Imposter syndrome is more common than you think, which is why I wanted to deal with it here because as an entrepreneur, for the longest time, I've allowed these feelings of feeling like a fraud. I mean, I have no background in media. I didn't go to school to be a journalist. I'm not a trained writer. I don't know how to the perfect formatting for a news story. And sometimes, as somebody who's launching a media company, especially one that's been around for as long as it has and maybe hasn't achieved everything that I set out to at the outset, sometimes it could feel like, am I really this or am I just pretending to be this? How many people listening to this have ever felt that? Well, if you've ever felt that, you're not alone, and that's what this show is about. So today we're going to explore what imposter syndrome is. I know it's a term that gets used a lot, how it manifests itself, and more importantly, how can we all overcome it? Because we're on this journey together. I'm on this journey to try to get to my first 10K in recurring revenue. And these are a lot of the things that I'm doing, the inner game of entrepreneurship to try to deal with some of the things that are holding me back, those invisible barriers. Not every barrier in an entrepreneur's life is something external. Sometimes the issue is internal. So I'm a definitions guy. So I always want to make sure that I am communicating in a way where we're both using the same definition. So imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern. Keyword there, pattern. It's, in other words, for a pattern might be like a loop, something that repeats itself, right? Something that occurs on a regular basis, something that you could predict. It is a pattern. So imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. So I've recorded tons and tons of podcasts, but every time I sit down for a podcast, I get nervous. Now, nervousness is very natural, but imposter syndrome takes it one step further. It even questions if I have a right to be sitting here being a podcast host. That's what I mean. It's that one step further. It's not nervousness. Maybe it's not a little bit of healthy anxiety, the kind of anxiety that helps you prepare. So you make sure that you do a good job. In my opinion, that's healthy because you do want to put your best foot forward. But I'm talking about the other things. So in spite of the preparation, in spite of the nervousness, in spite of your history of doing this, there's this persistent thought that I'm going to get found out here pretty soon. And the origins of this term dates back to the late 70s, I believe 1978, and two researchers, Dr. Pauline Clance, I hope I'm saying that right, and I think these are French names, and Dr. Suzanne Imus. And they were the ones who first discussed this idea or identified imposter syndrome. And it was among a very specific group. It was among high achieving women. And so I want to go to, this is an article from ScienceDirect.com that talks about the work that they did. I'm going to read through it really quickly. if you're an entrepreneur, you have to love learning. This is a moment of learning here. So stay with me as I go through this definition. And they even developed what is called the Clance, I hope I'm saying that right again, imposter phenomenon scale. So the Clance imposter phenomenon scale was designed to measure the concept that individuals are successful by external standards. So people outside of you are looking at you and saying, you're doing a good job. You're a good host. You have a great personality. You have a great voice. That's another thing for people who are recording. If you're out there and you want to start a podcast or you want to start a vlog or anything, one of the things you're going to realize is that you just have to get used to your own voice. And for many people, that's very difficult. I had to get used to my own voice. It's my voice. I can't change it. It is what it is, right? And so people might compliment you and say, you do that really well. You're really good at your job. You're a really great leader. You're a really great father. You're a really great mother. But somehow you have an illusion. And here's an important word. It's an illusion, right? An illusion that is self-created in a lot of cases. Of course, there's contributing factors to that, some as macro as societal, especially when you're talking about a study that was designed specifically to deal with this issue in high performing women. All right, so I'll read it again. I'm sorry, I'm kind of pausing here because some of these key words are so important to hone in on. But the Clance imposter phenomenon scale was designed to measure the concept that individuals are successful by external standards, but have an illusion of personal incompetence. Now, they developed this scale, at least in Science Direct. They were saying, hey, you need to dig into this scale a little bit more, but that's not the point. The scale assesses components of the phenomenon, such as ideas about self-doubt and achieving success only by chance. Psychometric properties of the scale were examined based on a sample of engineering college students. So this was done among engineering college students. And a key thing here that I want to point out, the imposter phenomenon encompasses the notion that persons attribute their successes to such things as interpersonal skills and luck rather than their intellectual ability. Has anybody ever done that? Maybe I got this job because of my connections. That might be true. But how did you keep the job? Is it just because you're like finessing your way through and you're getting lucky on these projects? Or are you really applying yourself to meet the moment? Introduced to explain why successful persons, particularly women, have the illusion, again, there's that word, of personal incompetence. The construct has been used to examine some other psychological conditions, achievement orientation, fear of both success and failure, and self-handicapping and parenting styles. So we'll get into those things. So that's just a definition that I found of imposter syndrome to center this conversation. Now, just because that study was done to examine the phenomenon among women, imposter syndrome affects people of all genders, all ages, all backgrounds, all races. So how does imposter syndrome manifest? And I'll talk specifically more about how it manifests in the entrepreneur or how you might be experiencing it. So persistent self-doubt, the feeling like you don't deserve success, oh my goodness, and attributing it to luck or external factors. And this is where I have to pause and share with you guys something that's very important. If any of these things are hindering your life in a way that you don't feel like you could manage on your own anymore, I highly, it's not my recommendation, it is highly recommended that you seek therapy. It's something that I've had the privilege, again, it's a privilege because of where I am in my life to have access to therapy. But it's a great place to start because the origins of self-doubt are deep. And I wanted to read this. This is an article from zencare.co. It says, self-doubt develops for a number of reasons. People who have self-doubt may have grown up in an environment that wasn't conducive for the development of self-confidence. That's major. If that's going on, it's something that you have to address, right? It's something that you need to seek professional advice and work with somebody who really understands how to deal with that. the person, they may have routinely questioned their abilities or received negative feedback from adults in their life to the point they internalize. Again, imposter syndrome is not necessarily external, right? It is an illusion, but it stems or it's rooted in things like self-doubt, which have been internalized, and internalized incompetence, where whatever the person said to you, you've now taken it and you are making it your words. All right. Others develop self-doubt after adverse experiences. This could include traumatic events, toxic relationships, and painful memories. And so that's one way that imposter syndrome, or one root cause of imposter syndrome, and how it might manifest itself. And in a great contrast to this, if you're feeling feelings of self-doubt, seek out people in your life, people that you admire, who have or demonstrate a high self-confidence, right? Now, in a lot of ways, you could fake it until you make it. And that's part of this. And we'll talk about how you overcome imposter syndrome, or ideas for overcoming imposter syndrome later. There's a component of that fake it until you make it. But I mean, for people whose self-confidence comes from a real place, and I think in a lot of ways you can feel that, because we are human animals. We can sense it. Much of confidence is not about what you say. It's that body language that's really, really difficult to fake. But hang out with people with high self-confidence so that you can observe the contrast in the way they approach life. And in a lot of ways, they're approaching life on the front foot, right? They're regardless of whether their conversation inside may be making suggestions to the contrary that would hold somebody back who is experiencing imposter syndrome, they are still taking that step forward. All right. So that would be my recommendation there. Hang out with people in your life who, just observe them. It doesn't even have to be a hanging out thing. Observe how they do business, how they do life, how they are in friendships, how they treat themselves, just to see another image of what that might look like. The other thing about how imposter syndrome manifests is around overachieving. Now, isn't overachieving a good thing? In our society, hustle culture, et cetera, when you're building a business, it's all about being as successful as possible. You're not really successful unless you build $1 billion company. But that could be a manifestation of imposter syndrome if it's not coming from an authentic place or being true to yourself. And overachieving can manifest itself in the following way: constantly pushing yourself to prove your worth. It's not about the achievement itself. It's not about the goal itself, but it's what the goal is going to show the world about you and your value. Where ideally, and I know nobody is ideal, we all struggle in different areas, but you would love for your feeling of worth to be intrinsic and not necessarily completely extrinsic. And oftentimes, is this constant pushing yourself to prove your worth, even if it means sacrificing your well-being. Now, we know about founder burnout. We know about all these things when it comes to founder health, and how devastating it could be if you don't have your finger on the pulse, pun intended, of your health. How damaging that can be if part of the reason why you're pushing so hard is to prove your worth. All right. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and about seeking validation, and what healthy recognition, which is important for human well-being, and what negative kind of validation seeking might look like. So this is an article from Psych Central titled, "Do You Seek Validation from Others? Here's How to Start." It says a healthy amount of external validation is needed for your mental well-being, but how much? Internal validation, which is where it should start, is the ability to honor and acknowledge your positive attributes, strengths, achievements, and emotions. External validation is the acknowledgement of your strengths and emotions from others. And that's where we need to find that balance when it comes to imposter syndrome, and how it might manifest itself in overachieving, and constantly trying to get validation about our worth as a person. All right, the third way it manifests. So we talked about persistent self-doubt, overachieving, fear. The third thing is fear of failure and fear of success. So in entrepreneurship, you're going to make mistakes. I'm going to say that again. In entrepreneurship, you're going to make mistakes. This is my second after hours session, y'all. Is this even a topic I should be talking about? Maybe, maybe not. But these are the things that I'm resonating with right now in my entrepreneurial journey. And these are things that I am speaking to because they're real experiences. I'm not doing some YouTube research and then deciding what to do a video on. That would probably be wise. But this is a community of people who are experiencing things together, hopefully growing together. And I want to kind of encourage that community feel. And so I'm going to continue to talk about things that are impactful beyond just the blocking and tackling X's and O's of business. I have another podcast, 614 Startups podcast, where I bring on subject matter experts to talk about things like that. But if you cannot overcome the internal issues, it's very, very difficult for you to be successful externally. So the fear of failure, being paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes or being discovered as incompetent. Guys, you don't become a YouTuber by studying YouTube. You become a YouTuber by doing. Everybody will tell you like your first 100, 200, 300 videos might get completely ignored. All right. And you don't even start talking about analytics and metrics and all of that until like video 100. So counting after hours videos, how good this video is as video 2 is of no real consequence, right? That should not be the reason why or why I don't pursue making videos that have the potential to have an impact on you or somebody to hear it in the future and it just be the right messenger. Right. I just have to do the work regardless of my fear that I might look stupid. I might make a mistake. This stream is going to be boring. You guys are not going to resonate with it. It's not going to get any views. You cannot, well, you can, but it is a mindset that you must adopt that failure is going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. There are going to be a certain population of people who don't think you're qualified to do what you do, but yet you have to do it anyway. The other side of the coin is fear of success. And this sometimes shows up as you take one step forward and two steps back, where you tend to self-sabotage as you move towards your goal. So let's say you have a goal of building a YouTube channel and you come out and do 100 videos and you finally start to have some success. And then all of a sudden you just stop. Right? Because as you start to approach your goal, are you a YouTuber? Are you good enough? Can you make this a business? Is this your calling? Is this your purpose? Starts to pull on you, and people tend to pull back because of that fear of success. So one of the things that I think about, and I'm trying to do a better job of practicing, is developing relationships, not transactional relationships, but real relationships with people who are more successful than I am, especially in the area where I have imposter syndrome. All right. And for many areas in business, that's around operations. So the finance, accounting, I get very intimidated by business speak. And in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to commit to study anyway. And so being around these people and asking questions and taking a beginner's mind and a learner's mind and saying, hey, how do you do that? You're really, really good at that. Can you show me how to be better at that? I don't really understand this, whether it's at work or it's in your business or you're at a networking event. If you see somebody who's just a natural networker, stop them. Say, hey, introverts are not going to do this, but you push yourself through. Hey, say, I love how you network, man. How did you get so good? What are some things that I can do to improve? And number 4, and the final thing, and then we're going to jump into some ideas for dealing with imposter syndrome, but is discounting success, minimizing your accomplishments and believing they're not significant enough. And I experienced this big time in my current role. where I was tasked to do something very, very difficult. And we made significant strides, but I always felt like I could have done better. And, maybe there's somebody out there who could have succeeded at a much faster rate, or who could have, achieved the outcomes that I desired, maybe better than me. Yeah, there's always probably somebody out there who's better than you. But this idea that what I accomplish as a result is not worth celebrating is problematic. And that's a way that imposter syndrome can manifest itself. So, a few things about recognizing it in yourself, and these are practices that I'm working on every day. Reflect on your thoughts and feelings, and this is where journaling comes into place, or having a daily moment of reflection, even if you're not journaling, and pay special attention to negative self-talk and patterns of self-doubt. Again, it's like when you say, "I'm going to go to that networking event," because it's important, and they're going to be like, and then the pattern, the self-talk kicks in and says, you don't like networking events. You're not going to do well. You're going to just go there and stand against the wall. You're not going to talk to, anybody, and it's just going to be a complete waste of time. If you thought about signing up, let's say, for one of our events, and that was your self-talk, it's important to acknowledge, but it's also important to ask why. Ask questions why. Like, where is this coming from? Why, and it might be from an experience where you had a negative experience at a networking event, but I would hope that you understand that negative experiences are going to happen in life, and you can't let a past negative experience completely shape your future. All right. Number two is notice your behaviors. So when you hear that self-talk, do you stop registering, or do you register and not go because the self-talk talked you out of it? So one thing is the talk, and the talk is going to happen and you can't control it. But what you can control is the behavior. So you could monitor, observe the self-talk, but monitor your behaviors. Make sure you're not avoiding challenges, one, or overworking yourself to compensate for perceived inadequacies. All right. And one of the ways that you can challenge yourself is by studying for growth, is by listening to things like this, taking the feedback, adopting it, and maybe, hopefully, over time, you can start to see improvements in these feelings, but more importantly, improvement in these behaviors. And number three, if you do this in a healthy way, it can be really impactful. Consider seeking feedback from trusted friends, family, or mentors to gain perspective on your accomplishments. Talk to people who you know and trust, that keep it real with you, and that will encourage you, right? And or they will point out, in some cases, the obvious about what you have done, to let you know that your accomplishments are significant and there is much more to be accomplished, as long as you continue to strive and work, and push and learn and challenge yourself. All right. So here are a few strategies that I've come up with to overcome imposter syndrome. Normalize imperfection. Is my camera angle perfect? Do I have on the perfect outfit? Do I sound perfect? Is this the perfect topic? It doesn't matter. I'm going to sit here and do it anyway. Right. And I'm planning on doing 200 videos before I'm even thinking about, what am I talking about? How do I sound? Is it too long? Is it too short? Of course, I'm going to take feedback, but I'm not going to focus so much on it being perfect. I'm going to give myself grace that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to experience self-doubt. It's all part of being human. I'm going to normalize the human part of feeling the feelings, but doing it anyway. Number two, I'm going to celebrate my achievements. So when I get to 20 of these videos, I'm probably going to do something nice for myself. Probably going to buy myself something nice, or maybe go somewhere nice, or just mark the achievement that even though I had these feelings, I persisted, and I hit a milestone. Number three is shifting your mindset. Challenge these negative thoughts. You're terrible at networking. Yeah, I might be terrible today, but after I go to this event, I'm going to be a little bit better. Well, when you go to this event, you're probably not going to talk to anybody. Yeah, maybe, but I'll probably talk to at least one person. right? That's my goal. And then I'll leave, or I'll hang out for a little bit and not talk to anybody else. But I know I would have overcome the fear of at least going and talking to one person, and replace those negative thoughts when you challenge them with affirmations of your capability and accomplishment. So I listened to this wonderful, wonderful affirmation on Spotify called Affirmations for Black Men. This is not about race. It just it's what the narrator is saying, that I resonate with so much. So if you want to check that out, Affirmations for a Black Man is absolutely wonderful. So in addition to challenging the negative thoughts, I also replace them with affirmations, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. Seek support. Again, I mentioned at the top of the show, therapy, for professional support, or your friend network, family network, or mentors could be huge in terms of providing encouragement and perspective. And then last but not least, have a bit of self-compassion. uh, it's crazy because I was having a conversation with some coworkers about the way we talk to ourselves. We would never talk to other people that way. In practicing self-compassion, I am going to make mistakes. I am going to have negative thoughts. I am going to avoid challenges because of these patterns of in the illusion of incompetence, right? I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to do this perfect, but love yourself anyway. Have compassion for yourself anyway, and continue to work at this, because over time, you are going to get better. All right. So in conclusion, I'm just going to do a quick summary. Overcoming imposter syndrome is a journey that requires self-awareness, resilience, and self-compassion. Remember, you are not alone in experiencing these feelings, and there are strategies for helping you to recover from them. Embrace your achievements and recognize your worth and thrive with confidence. I'm going to say that again. Embrace your achievements, recognize your worth, and thrive with confidence. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on personal development and self-improvement. Thank you for watching. Until next time, peace.